How could a poem about a pig possibly become one of the most powerful Christmas stories in my life? From the time I was young, even until today. You're going to find out. And more than that, you're going to be encouraged to think about the application in your own life, not just during Christmas, but all the year around. Stay tuned.
If your desire is to become spiritually stronger, emotionally healthier, and relationally smarter, you're at the right place. Speaker and writer Stephanie Smith inspires and equips you to achieve these three key aims. If you're a parent, you also learn how to raise empowered kids, ready for adulthood. Let's get started.
Hello, my friend. When this episode initially airs, it will be December 23rd, 2025. Now, if you are listening to this after that date, don't worry. It is appropriate and evergreen no matter when you are listening. There are some episodes that might just have an expiration date, kind of like the cranberry sauce that maybe you're going to buy for Christmas. And there are other episodes that are truly evergreen. They don't disappear. Their significance doesn't go away over time. And today is going to be one of those episodes. First, if you are new around here, you are absolutely invited to do this. But if you are a longtime listener, could I encourage you to have a Christmas gift for me? Now, no, I'm not giving you my mailing address and expecting you to drop something off in the mail. But one of the gifts that you can give back to me and to other listeners is to leave a rating and a review. Help other people discover that this is something worth listening to and help me to know how I am meeting your needs. Next week, I'm going to be back with an episode that wraps up the core compass of truth that I have been sharing about. I've taught about that early on when this podcast first launched, almost 200 episodes now. And it's timeless truths that we need. And then starting in 2026, this is going to take on a new look. So you'll definitely have to stay tuned. What is definitely not changing is my mission. My mission is still the same. I want to see people who are spiritually strong, emotionally healthy, and relationally smart. I want to help people exchange their good intentions for a life of great impact. And that is possible for everyone, no matter where you've started life, no matter where you are now, no matter what your age or your circumstances. You can have a life of tremendous impact and create a great legacy for you, your family, and who even knows how many other people that are in your circle now or may come into your circle later. So what was this opening about a poem about a pig have to do with Christmas? Well, I'm going to share with you a true story from my life. When I was a young teenager, it is Christmas morning, and I am seated in the brown paneled living room with my family. That included my mom and dad and two brothers, one 2 years older and one 4 years younger. Nope, no sisters. Having raised 5 sons, I've pretty much been surrounded by testosterone my entire life. But back to that year, so many decades ago. And as we are seated in our respective spots, I am in a chair in the corner of the room. And I am watching the gifts coming out from under the tree, and they're being handed to my brother, my other brother, my mom, my dad, occasionally, and I want to emphasize the word occasionally, to me. And while I don't recall all of the gifts that I opened that day, I do recall that they were small. I don't mean small just in size. I mean small as in, maybe a little bottle of perfume, maybe some socks. I mean, the types of things that were all well and fine, but nothing that lit up a young teenage girl's heart. In the meantime, however, I am watching my younger brother open these amazing gifts, and I watched not really with jealousy. Okay, maybe a little bit of jealousy, especially as the day went on, the morning went on. But also excitement for my older brother as he unwrapped an amazing stereo. Some of you who are listening and who have only grown up in the era when sound comes in bite-sized packages, it comes in software that you can tuck into your ear or your pocket, or maybe even, it requires something that's big enough that you have to fit it into a phone size container and like strap it onto your arm. What I'm about to tell you might be kind of like a, what? What are you talking about? But just stick with me. You see, at that time period, kind of the bigger the stereo, the grander it was. It was just the opposite of today, where we equate smallness with significance. But then, if you had a big stereo that had big speakers and this package we called a boombox, wow, that was something. And it didn't just come with a radio, it also came with a cassette tape player. That's right. Not only could he listen to his favorite radio stations, but he could listen to cassettes. Because with a cassette, you didn't have to wait until your favorite song showed up on the radio because the DJ picked it. No, you could listen to your favorite music whenever you wanted. Okay, well, whenever you wanted, and the stereo system was nearby so that you could turn it on and listen to it. I mean, it wasn't like you could just carry this big boombox with you. But you could pop that cassette in. You could even hit the rewind or the fast forward button, and it could take you pretty close at least to where your song was starting. I mean, okay, you might have to listen to a little bit of the ending of the last song because it wasn't like you could go exactly to where it started, but pretty close. And then when you got to the end of the song, if you remembered what the numbers were on the counting machine, you could rewind to that exact same spot and you could listen to it all over again. Wow, those were the days. And those cassette tapes, why, they lasted forever. Well, at least until the machine either messed up and it ate your tape, or it tore it in half, or it jammed it, and then you had to, with surgical precision, extract the tape. And then you would hope that you would be able to wind it back up one way or the other with a pencil, or maybe if your fingers were small enough, your finger. And then, if it was torn, well, there was always the hope of splicing things back together again. There's something about learning how to do repairs with a physical item that maybe helps to teach us how to do repairs with relationships. But maybe that's a podcast for another day. Back to Christmas morning. I sat in my chair, and as the pile of presents under the tree grew smaller, my heart grew darker. Yes, I am sorry to admit, I was not sitting there exulting in the small little pile of packages that had accumulated in my corner. No, it was just the opposite. I saw the physical evidence that my parents loved my brothers more than me. It was right there, clear as could be, all wrapped up with bows and shiny paper. Yep, this was the proof. And as the last couple of presents were pulled out from the tree, small as they were, at that point, I didn't even care if they were small. Maybe there'd be something impressive in that stack for me. But you know what? They didn't get passed out to me. We finished unwrapping the gifts. My heart was down in my shoes. I was taking everything I could not to start crying. And my parents announced that it was time to get our coats on and to get ready because we were going to be heading over to my grandmother's house for Christmas lunch and to celebrate over there. And so as I gather up my little pathetic pile of presents, my dad stops and says, "Oh, wait just 1 minute." And then he comes back into the room and he says, I think we forgot something for Stephanie. And my heart immediately leaps back up into where it's supposed to be. And I am expecting and hoping that there will be a giant box that gets pulled in because, yes, okay, I was still young enough that, the quality of the present was tied to the size of the box. But instead of a big box, I'm handed a card. That's right, a card. I force myself to smile, although I'm pretty sure it was probably a pretty pathetic smile. And as I open the card, I read these words. 1 pig is nice. 2 pigs are fine. Go to the barn to see what is thine. My heart plummeted back into the darkness. You see, my older brother and I had accompanied my dad several months earlier when he was going to go buy some hogs. And while we were there were a couple of little runt piglets. And we discovered on this expedition that what happened with runt piglets was, well, to put it mildly, they didn't even make it to the bacon stage because the cost of feeding them wasn't going to be worth justifying their existence. So they were slated for an early departure, shall we say. Well, this broke our hearts, and so we begged to see if we could have one of those little piglets, each of us getting one. And the other farmer happily agreed because, of course, he wouldn't have to mess with them at all. My dad consented, and we each came home with our very own little piglet. And they were fun, sorta, for a while. But they still had a way of growing, even though they were never going to grow into full-size pigs. And we trained them to be on a leash, and they would do crazy things like somersaults. Yes, piglets can actually do somersaults. But after a while, the fun kind of wore off. And I was not into raising pigs. I was not a part of 4-H, and I had less than zero desire to add another pig to my collection. And that is what the card implied. It was a cold, snowy winter morning, so we all put on our coats and hats and gloves and boots. And we walked, I drug myself to the barn, convincing myself along the way that I'd better shape up and act like I was so happy to have another pig, even though all I really wanted to do was to take off running for the wild blue yonder, never to be seen again. My parents and brothers had much better attitudes. We worked our way through the snow down to the barn, and my father pulled back the big metal barn door. And I looked inside and I saw a tail. You do know pigs have tails, right? They're small and thin and curly. But that is not the tail that I saw. I saw a long, flowing tail. And with it were 4 hooves and a mane and the most beautiful, soft pair of eyes on a horse that a person could ever hope to see. Now, as many girls dream of, I had dreamt of a horse for as long as I could remember. And there had been a few times we'd had a horse, well, what would technically have qualified for a horse, but was really, I think, kind of a wild spirit that had just taken over a horse's body, something that wasn't really terribly enjoyable over the years. But this was not the same. This was an actual horse, a yearling to be exact, with brown soft eyes and a white star shape right on her forehead. I couldn't believe my eyes. Never in my wildest dreams had I ever imagined such an amazing gift. And how they had kept her hidden from me, I don't even know. But Star became a devoted companion. And I would love to say that the story all got wrapped up there with a nice little bow, but the truth is it didn't. Because you see, my heart that morning had been so dark. I had been filled with so much self-pity and just focusing on myself that it took me a long time to really enjoy the gift that I had been given. And how many times in the years since then has God brought that back to me, not in a condemning, shameful way, but in a gentle way. He said to me, Stephanie, right now you're at a place in life where you may look around and see the gifts that other people have, and you may be tempted to feel sorry for yourself. And maybe there are things that you don't have. But remember, you never know what's coming. You never know what's around the corner, what's behind the door that's waiting to open. And so you have a choice. You can either wallow in self-pity and you can allow jealousy to grow in your heart, or you can choose to have a right heart, to have a heart of gratefulness and gratitude and an anticipation. Not because you know what's going to happen, but because you choose to live with gratitude and appreciation. Because when the gift does come, whenever it comes and whatever it looks like, and sometimes it's not quite what you were wanting, and sometimes, it's so much more than what you could have anticipated. You're going to want to be able to fully enjoy that because you knew that your heart was right to begin with. And that's a reminder and a gift that God has brought back to me over and over in my life. I don't know what you're hoping for in your life, whether it's a gift under a Christmas tree or maybe it's something just in life. Maybe it's the hope of a spouse. It's the hope of healing. It's the hope of a new job. It's the hope of a child. It's the hope of another child. It's the hope for a wayward child to return. It is the hope for someone to come out of their addiction. It is the hope of salvation. It is the hope of getting out of debt. It is the hope of financial prosperity. It is the hope to have impact. It is the hope to use your gifts and your abilities and to walk in your calling. It's the hope of friends. It's the hope to be able to grow in your knowledge and understanding and relationship with God. The list is truly endless of all the things that we can desire and hope for, things that are good. But I want to encourage you that even if you've been hoping and waiting for something for a very long time, and you're about to the point you just want to give up, and you want to stop hoping, you want to stop waiting, you want to stop praying and asking for something, that you check your heart and that you determine that you're going to live with a heart of gratitude and openness, because you never know what's right around the corner. You never know what door God is getting ready to slide open, and you may be looking at something that's far more than you could ever ask or hope or imagine. So remember this, my friend, because it is true. You have an impact that is immeasurable, eternal, and irreplaceable. Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening. Visit the website stephaniepresents.com and sign up for High Impact to join the mission of building spiritually strong, emotionally healthy, and relationally smart women and families. You can also book Stephanie to speak at your event and check out additional resources. Together, we can invite and equip generations to engage fully in God's grand story.